You are joining me for my first live. We are still homeschooling, and I have my notes here with me. So I put the title as What Direction Are You Headed? And so this is a book study that I finished a couple months ago, and it was so encouraging. It was toe stepping, it just was driving me. And over the last couple of months, this has been something that I have been prayerfully praying about and just asking for guidance. And this book was just so good, and so I thought this book was really encouraging to me, and so I wanted to do a little live book study where every week I will come on and I will share a chapter with you. This week is just the introduction, so it should be nice and short, but that's a little bit of why I decided to do this book study. And I don't know if it will encourage anyone. I don't know if anyone will even watch this, but it was so encouraging to me, and so I wanted to pass it along. This year, my focus has really been personal growth, and so this is just one step in personal growth: reading books, journaling, gratitude journals, all of those things. And so in the introduction, she talks about, this is by Terri Savelle Foy, and it's 5 things successful people do before 8 a.m. So I am going to say, I'm not a morning person. I hate mornings, actually. If I can get up before 9 o'clock, that to me is a good day. So I take this as, and she even says in the book, if you're not a morning person, that's okay. You don't have to be a morning person. These are just things that successful people do, and she breaks it down chapter by chapter. It's just so good, the things she talks about. It's things I never would have thought about. But in the introduction, it's talking about how her life was so different when she was in her 20s, and it starts out with her moving into this huge community in Texas. It's a really rich area, and one of the movers said, "How do you get a life like this?" And it starts there, and she's like, "By changing your habits." And it's so simple, but it's not. It takes daily action. It takes daily intentionality, and it's just, the first quote she puts in here is from Thomas Edison, and it says, "If we did all the things we are capable of doing, we would literally astound ourselves." And if that doesn't make you stop and think what is something I should be doing that I'm not, then I don't know, maybe this book isn't for you. But I stopped there and I was like, oh man, that's hard. That's hard to swallow. We would astound ourselves if we did everything we could be doing. So anyway, she goes on to talk about the routines and habits that you have. If you do them, if you create these routines and these habits, she said, you will change your whole life. Just flat out, you will change your whole life. And so she talks about 12 years prior, she was this rich woman. She was living in this fancy community, no debt, paid cash, YouTube, Instagram following, public speaking events all over the world. And 12 years prior, she was living in debt. Her marriage was falling apart. She was living with depression and doubted her worth, and she was just looking for more. And she says that the results of these things started because of poor habits. And she said what she ended up doing is she was working out of her home, and they told her, please don't come into the office anymore. You need to care for yourself, do your job at home, grow yourself, take care of yourself, and when you're back on the right track, we'll bring you back in. And so she said, I took a journal and I just started writing down all these things I wanted to change. And so she starts there, and then she said she did 5 things, just 5, and then she wanted to stick with them for 21 days. Now, the average time it takes you to build a consistent habit is usually 66 days or more. And so she's like, if I can do 21 days, that's my basis. So I'm going to start there. And so she stuck to them for 21 days. And she says, the secret to your future is hidden in your daily routine. Then she quotes John Maxwell, who's a really big public speaker, really good at personal development, and even big in that network marketing field. And he says that if he could just observe somebody for 24 hours, he could tell what direction their life is headed in. That's the title of this video. Because if you are headed in the wrong direction, you're going to have all of these habits that you shouldn't be keeping, and you're not going to be doing the things that you should be doing. And so he continues and says, success doesn't happen suddenly. It occurs one day in someone's life, but neither does failure. Each is a process. And so if you're headed in the right direction, you're going to create these habits that are taking you in the right direction. And if you are doing the wrong habits, you're going to take yourself into the hole, further in the wrong direction, further away from success. And each one is a process. It's not just one day you wake up and, oh no, all of a sudden I don't have the life I was living or the life I was dreaming of. It's going to be a daily choice to do these things. And then the author states, you change yourself by changing something you do each day. So it can be a big habit. It can be like, all right, every day I'm going to go run a mile. And then you start with day 1 and then day 2, and you don't break that habit. Don't do it for 30 days. Don't break that habit. Just do it every single day and it will become a habit. So it says, frustration is a sign of vision. So being repelled or frustrated by something, usually that means like, we use that word like in disgust. And in a sense, that's what you want. Like if you're disgusted with where you are and where your life is, then you're going to do something to change it. Like if you're disgusted with your weight, if you're disgusted with your eating habits, if you're disgusted with the lifestyle you're living and the money that you don't have, you're going to do something about it. You're going to jump on board and you're say, I'm going to change this, and you're going to look for every opportunity to change it. So that frustration is the start of your vision, and it's what's going to make you get into a better habit because you have that motivation to change. And so it says you have to take 100% responsibility for where you are and where you're headed. It's not your neighbor's fault that you're in your position. It's not your mom's fault, your dad's fault, your sibling's fault. It's 100% you. You're choosing to continue down this path, or you're choosing to go a different direction. And then we're almost finished up, I promise. I won't go too long-winded because this is just the introduction, but it's so good, and I hope that this like encourages somebody. But it says self-discipline is the most important principle of success. Without it, none of the other principles work. If you don't have self-discipline, if you're not disciplined enough to change one habit one day at a time, then you can't do any of these other habits, because it has to start with something so simple as self-discipline. It's not grabbing that cookie out of the cookie jar, of which I'm guilty of all too often. It's choosing to just be disciplined and say, I'm not going to do that today. I'm not going to do that habit. I'm not going to grumble and complain. I'm not going to whatever it is. You're just not going to do it. You're going to be disciplined enough to say no. And then some of the things that she says that are going to help you set these habits is set realistic goals and habits that will revolutionize your life. So don't just like set a small habit that's like, oh, I'm just going to avoid the kitchen today. Like that's not going to help you, because long term you actually have to go into the kitchen. You have to eat. You have to have food. But set a realistic goal, like maybe I'm not going to buy cookies and ice cream because it's too tempting for me. Or maybe I'm not going to hang around that person because when I'm around them, I just want to grumble and complain, and they're not happy, which makes me not happy, which makes me complain. Just set those habits and just say, you know what, I'm not going to do this. I'm disciplined. I cannot be around this person. I cannot have this in the house. Use that self-discipline and start with that. Set that realistic goal and habit. Don't say at the end of the year I want to make $3 million when in all reality that's not possible. You are in the job you are in, and you can find other streams of income, but if you go from 40,000, you're not going to make $3 million in the next 12 months. Most likely. Now, I'm not going to say that definitively because you could, but the second thing she says, so you're going to set realistic habits and goals, and then you are going to become aware and stop the bad habits. It says take control of your habits and you'll take control of your life. Again, she says that. She brings it up so often because, again, it's the 100% responsibility. Then it says getting up each day to invest in yourself is an opportunity, not an obligation. Don't look at this as something you have to do. This is something that I hear so often. I don't have to do this. I get to do this. But that mindset is such a basic principle. You have to believe it in your mind. It's an opportunity. It's not an obligation. So the end quote that she leaves with is, Successful people are intentional. You have to be intentional about what you do each day. You have to wake up with a game plan and a direction of where you're going. If you don't have a game plan or an idea of where you want to go that day or that week, then your day's going to be thrown off, and one thing's going to come up and something else is going to come up, and then your day's going to be all off track, and at the end of the day you're going to say, what did I accomplish? What did I get done? So be intentional, be disciplined, do all of those things. Start with one small habit, whether it's reading a book or going for a walk every night or not eating dessert. Start with a small habit, set it in stone, tell yourself you are absolutely not going to do this, and just don't do it. And then next week we'll start on the next chapter. Thanks for joining me. I'm so glad to see some people. Hopefully you got something out of this. If you did, let me know. I want to know if this encouraged you. So I'll see you next week. Bye.
Hey, Mommy, do you think once you stop doing this, you'll start talking